Welcome back. Well, stable for the market. So let's get talking to a couple of companies. PolyMedicure is the one that we're tracking. In fact, the stock is down around 5% reacting to its numbers that came out over the weekend. But if you look at it on a year-to-date basis, the stock has performed very well. It's up over 50% on a year-to-date basis. For Q2 itself, it was a good set of numbers. Revenue jumped around 23%. Margins were stable on a year-on-year basis, but they came off sequentially. Going forward, the company does plan to launch a new critical care business. That's what they had guided for in Q3. To discuss this and more, we have Himanshu Baid, who's the managing director of the company, joining in now. Mr. Baid, hi, welcome to the show. Well, let's start with your entire year, because in the first half of the fiscal, you've already done a revenue growth of around 26%. You have earlier guided that revenue for FY24 will probably be around 20% plus. Are you now in a position to probably increase your guidance just based on how the first half has performed?
Yeah, I think that's what we are looking at because in the beginning of the year, we were not sure about the headwinds, especially in the export markets. But the export markets have also done equally well. And now we see that for the whole year, definitely the guidance will be close to between 22 and 24%. And that's what we see on the lower side, but it could be around 24 also.
Okay, so 24%, that's for FY24, got it. That's on the top line. What about on the margins? On a year-on-year basis, your margins are quite stable. But just wanted to understand, earlier you had said that there was volatility in raw materials, there was some logistics costs that you had to incur as well. So margins could be volatile. But going forward for the second half of the year, what would be the margin band?
So we have been pretty consistent in the 25 to 27% range in terms of EBITDA margins. So we think that will be in this range for the whole year. And so far, it looks pretty steady. And we don't see any, unless until there is something, of course, the current geopolitical situation is slightly different than it was 6 months ago. But I think it hasn't impacted exports or India business for us at all. So I think we should guide in that 25 to 27% range.
All right. So 25 to 27% is the margin range, and you've increased your revenue guidance from 20% to 22 to 24%. Himanshu, you usually give us detailed guidance for your verticals of the business as well. So this 22 to 24%, if you could break that up into how the domestic vertical is likely to grow, how the exports business is likely to grow, and the dialysis business, the renal business, how much is that as a percentage of your sales? How is that likely to grow? If you could break that up for us.
Yeah, so currently, if you look at H1 numbers, I think export business is around 2/3, domestic business is 1/3, and both have grown at a rate of around 25% for first 6 months. So that's pretty, we're in a good situation for where all the businesses are growing at the same pace. And going forward, also we see a similar pace. And of course, India, we want to grow because most of the investments we have done the plants are going live now between now and the end of the year. So we'll have more increased capacity going forward in next 6 months. And that will also add to, faster growth in India, actually. And on the renal business, we continue to grow around that 30 to 35% range right now. Though we would like to grow a little higher, but we still have smaller headwinds because of the imports coming from China at much lower pricing. And we have been pushing the government to bring in some QC orders so that, we have more quality quality products coming to India. And from 1st October 2023, now all products are regulated in the country. So probably that will also kind of put some brakes on, non-regulated exports coming from China.
Okay. Mr. Baid, just before I touch upon the domestic growth, your renal business in Q1 grew 22%. You're saying that it grew 30 to 35% this quarter? What was the exact figure?
Yeah, it grew around 30% in Q2, yes.
30% in Q2, that's the renal business. Okay,
Yeah.
now just coming down to the domestic business, what we are seeing as the dependence of medical devices which are imported is reducing. There's more indigenous production which is taking place. Can you tell us what your market share is? What is the situation on the ground? Have you probably eaten up some share from MNCs?
See, I think that's the reason we are putting that investment and putting those 4 new plants, because that's the opportunity we see where a lot of localized manufacturing will happen as we go along in next 2-3 years. And I think we are fully geared up for that, and that investment we have done now close to 500 crores. I think that will bring in all the returns in coming financial year. So we are very bullish on the Indian market and the conversion of market share from MNCs to Indian companies in next 2-3 years. And that trend is already started to happen, and we are seeing that kind of a change in the perception of people in hospitals, where they are looking forward to more locally made products than MNC made foreign made products.
I wanted to just get a little more clarity on what's happening in the export market. I heard you mention that both domestic and exports are growing at a pace of around 20%. But there are some issues, right? There's a lot of geopolitical tensions. You have a plant in Egypt. In the US as well, there is some nervousness currently. Can you tell us the export market, are you facing any headwinds at all? And if yes, could the growth trajectory slow down over there?
I think export will continue to do that 25% growth, which we have projected for the whole year. And very simple reason is that in the first year itself, if you see H1 data, 50% of revenue is coming from Europe. So, and for us, Europe is one of the fastest growing markets. So in this year, if you look at H1 numbers, Europe has grown by around 35 to 40%, whereas other geographies have kind of slowed down a bit, especially Africa, Middle East. But Europe has done very well for us, and I think that will, and we see the momentum actually continuing in next 6 months to 1 year.
All right, and finally, before we let you go, you did indicate that you were looking at a critical care business that you were looking to launch in the third quarter. Just wanted to understand what exactly is this, and how much do you think it will contribute to your revenues in the near, medium, and long term?
So we are launching 2 new businesses. One is the critical care, which is more extension of our vascular access business. And that business is also, these are more products used in intensive care units, and typically targeting multinational companies that want to replace those products. And the second important business we are starting is for interventional cardiology products. And that business we are going to launch probably in Q4 of this current financial year.
Okay, just a quick last question, Mr. Baid, and just a brief answer. Have you started your operations in the US?
Yes, we have. The first shipment has already left last week. So that's what I want to share with everybody. So we have now started the US business, and I think we already got certification, US FDA certification. So that project is on, and it's getting good momentum.
Okay, all right, we leave it at that. Thanks a lot for joining in. That's PolyMedicure. Let's step into a quick break. On the other side of the break, Ruchit Jain of 5paisa.com will join in with some trading strategies. Stay tuned.